Chris James, my man CJ, he is breaking down AFC North quarterbacks. We brought him back. He was on our section last week talking about the quarterbacks here and was there a battle between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Today, he's going to break down all four quarterbacks within the division. He'll give you an answer at the end on who he thinks is the best and all that good stuff. So we appreciate you guys bringing in CJ now. Chris James, my man CJ. Again, just so everybody understands, CJ, he is a senior analyst at Football Game Plan. He also has fantasy football analyst at Pix 11 in New York City. He's the host of Chopping It Up CJ, a podcast that's also available wherever you get your podcast, and Football Writers of America Association member. CJ, how are you doing today, my man?
Doing very well, Big B. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you again for joining us. You know, we're talking about this AFC North, man. It is just, first of all, the division in general is just insane. Absolutely insane. Last year, I said it was going to be the best division in football, and it was clearly the best division in football. I think it's going to be the same thing again this year. I wouldn't even be surprised, CJ, if everybody from this division makes the playoffs. I know people think, oh, it's not a possibility. I'm like, yeah, actually, it is a possibility. And not to mention, everybody had a winning record last year. So it is a possibility. Taking a deep dive into this, let's start off with the first question here. Cleveland, I don't know. Can DeShaun Watson, can he find what that magic that he had back in Houston? Is that something that he's capable of doing? Because it's been 4 years since we've seen that. Is he capable of getting that back?
Sure. So I want to start here.
Okay.
If anyone remembers how good DeShaun Watson is, they should also understand how horrible this marriage was with scheme and player. DeShaun Watson has been since his Clemson days. They weren't running heavy play action. It's been a spread situation where he's able to see the field, not turn his back, and make decisions from there, usually second act decisions, right? Read one's not there, read two's not there, bang, either take off or get to another place. This offense is completely opposite of what he does as a strength. So other quarterbacks thrived in it. This season, because both Stefanski and Watson need it, they have to blend together his strengths with that offense's goal, and almost the best thing possible, Nick Chubb being slow out the gates, because I don't think he'll be ready for the first couple of weeks of the season. They won't be able to rely on that run game. They'll have to go to a more Watson-centric offense, and I think that'll actually get him back into his groove.
Right. Yeah. And I've heard some reports, out of their mini camps, OTAs and all that stuff, that they are doing a lot more shotgun stuff just for what you said, to get him in a better position to where he can make plays and see the field better. It's just different. If you've never done it, and then all of a sudden you're throwing it, especially at the highest level, and you're being asked to change your style. It's not that DeShaun Watson is dumb, or because that's what people want to say. It's like, that doesn't mean that. It just means he's never played where he's had to turn his back to the defense. Everything's always been in front of him. So going from 1, 2, 3, 4, things are a lot easier than when you have to turn your back, play action, come back around, and then try to go to 1, 2, 3, 4. Things just, and first of all, it happens a lot faster. So that's the one thing. And then just everything meshing together just wasn't a good mesh. You're right. But I think maybe they can figure something out. I'm just not sure. I just, I hear this a lot of times from people. Sometimes when people get the bag, and DeShaun Watson got the bag, sometimes they just say, you know what? It is what it is. Maybe I'll get better. Maybe I won't. You don't think that maybe he's that guy, but we haven't seen it, CJ. So I just don't know.
It's a natural thing I think it's called shirking is the terminology. Yeah. So it's a natural thing that happens. It's not intentional. These guys you're going to be more you're going to eat more when you're hungry. How about that?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, and as far as DeShaun Watson's intelligence, I'm fairly certain he graduated in 2.5 years from his undergrad and qualified for the Senior Bowl after 3 years of playing. And the same year when Trubisky didn't even qualify, and he was a full year older. But anyway.
That's a different conversation for a different day. I'm right there with you. So let's talk about the next quarterback. Look, the two-time MVP, Lamar Jackson. We've seen it in this division. Look, as Steeler fans, we're like, we're not afraid of Lamar Jackson. We got Lamar Jackson's number. It's almost like he can't beat us. Having said that, he's still the two-time defending MVP, but he's a two-time MVP. He won it last season. In a year that, me and you had discussed previously on different podcasts, it wasn't a great year for quarterbacks last year. It just wasn't one of those, hey, guys are throwing for 5,000 yards all over the place. It was just a little bit of a different year, and he ended up winning the award. And in my opinion, they've kind of just made this thing a quarterback award now. When you gave it to him, okay, that's fine. But what's his next progression? What does Lamar Jackson need to do to try to get over the hump? Because yes, he won the MVP, but he hasn't been to the Super Bowl. And if we're being honest, he hasn't really even played well in playoff games. What does he need to do?
So people are going to come at me for this, but you know what? I'm ready for it.
Yes.
You know who he parallels very closely to in almost every way? Peyton Manning. Ooh. Through their first 6 playoff games, Peyton Manning was 2-4. He actually lost his first 3. Looks like Lamar Jackson, right? He's also 2-4 through his first 6 playoff games. 2-time MVP. Guess who was also a 2-time MVP over that stretch? Peyton Manning, who also had the moniker of couldn't win the big game, couldn't get it done. And by the way, in his first 3 playoff games combined, Peyton Manning completed less than 50% of his passes. What couldn't Lamar Jackson do? His play dropped off in the playoffs also. It parallels way too closely to Peyton Manning. And it's because these guys are football savants. There's a lot of pressure on their plate. And what happens is these teams just expect them to carry things. Even if they're trying to help, they expect them to carry things. So I think last year was a big teaching lesson for Lamar and for the Ravens as a whole. I think that he's going to be completely fine because they'll continue to progress and allow him to be the guy that he's always been, a great quarterback with his arm. And they got that bell cow, that thumper in the backfield, just in case their offensive coordinator forgets to run the ball. Derrick Henry will cast a shadow and say, "Hey, coach, I'm here."
Yeah, that was that AFC Championship game looked ugly last year, just refusing to run the football. When they are actually running the football, they're having a lot of success, and they just stopped doing it. But either way, like I said, Steeler fans, we don't care. We thought that was a great game. Not to mention, like I said, Lamar Jackson's got trouble with the Steelers, man. He's had trouble with us, so we're okay. We feel good about it. Like I said, I think he's a great quarterback. He's got a lot to still prove, but we're not afraid. We're just not afraid of LJ. Speaking of quarterbacks that aren't afraid, look, Joe Burrow, great quarterback. I've said this. A lot of other people have said this about Joe Burrow, and I think it's a fair statement to make. Joe Burrow's injury prone. For so long, people had said Lamar Jackson's injury prone. Joe Burrow's been injured more than Lamar Jackson, and the injuries have been worse, and he's been out longer. Is it fair to say that Joe Burrow is injury prone at this point?
You can say it because it goes along with it, right? Usually, at least in my estimation, I wouldn't say it only because usually it's the same type of injuries. So if you continuously have soft tissue injuries, you're injury prone, that type of thing. He just has awkward injuries. The first one was because they forgot to take care of either guard. They didn't have any guards, so someone went through his knee. But this last one was concerning because there was nothing. No contact, no nothing. So that one actually concerned me. But prior to that, I would have never thought of it. But I think it's fair to, if you want to assert that, it's fair now because non-contact injuries that keep you out for the rest of the season, that's awkward.
Yeah. So that's my thing is that it's just like non-contact. I know it was his wrist, but last time I checked, the quarterback needed a wrist to throw the football. So, a non-contact for that, it's problematic, very problematic. Here's a thing that I think a lot of people touch on, CJ, is, there's outstanding quarterback play. First of all, in this division, all 4 teams are really, really good. Okay. The quarterbacks, the Steelers, you could say the Steelers have the 4th best quarterback in this division. Now, it may not play out that way. We actually might get better play. So, okay, if we do, but let's just say they do have the 4th best quarterback, even though all the teams are really good. Can you win this division if you are the 4th best quarterback in this division?
Absolutely. Because, and I think you've mentioned it before, and you're wearing the Steelers on you. They've been able to have a winning record with Duck Hodges at quarterback. They just need competent play. Not to throw any shade at this young man, but a Brock Purdy with San Francisco. San Francisco wasn't carried by Brock Purdy. He just got the job done. But he could have been, he's at least the third best quarterback in that division. If, arguably for some people could be the fourth. But they got to the Super Bowl. So the same thing here. The Steelers have always had a tough team. They're built well on defense. They've stacked the offense this year to go very well with a new OC who, that's his job. That's what he does really well in Arthur Smith. All you have to do is play above competent football, and you can actually compete late into the playoffs, even in the AFC.
Yeah, that's what I think, because the defense, especially with Pittsburgh, our defense is so good. Cleveland, even though I hate saying it, their defense is so good. We know the Ravens' defense is good. And the Bengals' defense fell off a little bit. It may be better this season. I think they may have added a couple of pieces, so we'll see how good their defense is. But I think that's the difference. Most of the time when you're talking about, teams in a division, all the defenses aren't any good. So you can say, okay, well, if you're on a team to where you have the fourth best quarterback, then your defense may not be good. So you're not winning. So you can't do that. Well, when your defense is so good, you can get by with having the fourth best. Again, it doesn't mean bad quarterback play. And I think that's where people make the distinction. Fourth best doesn't mean you're bad. It just means three are just better than you. And that can be okay as long as everything stacks up. As long as you continue to play well, there can just be other guys better. So I'm glad you made that distinction there. My last question, and again, this is probably the one that everybody wants to know. Who's the best quarterback in the division?
Ooh. So I did a quarterback ranking recently, and these guys are right next to each other. Burrow and Lamar Jackson. I'll put it like this. At this exact moment, who would I prefer? I'd prefer Lamar Jackson. It's because I know that he can put more on his plate. Even though I love how Burrow does carry a team, he brings bravado. He's like a Tom Brady. People believe more with a guy like him. But that wrist injury, I don't care what anyone says. That concerns me until I see him come out and ball again and not have that happen. So at this moment, I take Lamar Jackson. I would not lose any sleep if he had to give me Joe Burrow. I got to see DeShaun Watson return to form. And heck, if you force me to have Russell Wilson, I'll be A-okay with that, considering I'm a Saints fan.
I totally understand. That's the thing, man. Us Steelers Almighty here, we try to be as honest as possible, man. The thing that I have tried to stress to people is, yes, Russell Wilson was in a bad situation, kind of what you've mentioned before. Yes, some of it was on him, but a lot of it's tough. Just think about your everyday job or what you do. If you knew for a fact that your direct boss did not want you there and your ownership of the company that you work for, number one, wanted you to take a pay cut and they don't want you there, it's tough to go and perform every single week when you have to perform. And that was what Russell Wilson was under last year. I mean, if you can, and again, I'll get you out of here on this. Just kind of describe how tough Russell Wilson had it last year, CJ.
I mean, he's coming off a year even prior where nothing blended well. Everything went south. Right. He was trying to fit in. And then you get into this situation. Russell Wilson had to deal with an offense that was not designed for his strengths and his skill set. With what Sean Payton does, he runs much more of a horizontal game than a vertical game.
Right.
I think he got used to late career Drew Brees. And all Russell Wilson came in and did, and I think he had 2 of the 5 most difficult completions in the entire NFL last year, and touchdown completions. The one to Sutton in the corner of the end zone on like a Monday night, he was insane for what he was asked to do. So if Russell Wilson plays like that for Pittsburgh is a real deal contender for the AFC Championship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, thank you for your time again, CJ. We appreciate you, man. Again, we'll always have you back whenever you have the opportunity and we're breaking down quarterbacks. We will have you back. So I appreciate it. And thank you. All right, man. Who is the best QB in the AFC North? That is the poll question that I have for everybody. So please leave your answers in the comments section. Is it Joe Burrow? Is it Lamar Jackson? Is it DeShaun Watson? Or is it Russell Wilson? Leave your answers in the comments on who is the best quarterback in the AFC North.